Greetings and welcome to the 68th episode of Online Showcases, and as always, I'm your host, Elf Guy, and today we have another 13 specifically Telvanni themed mods for your viewing pleasure, or at least, mostly Telvanni themed anyway. This is our 5th or possibly 6th Telvanni themed episode, and we're starting to have just a bit of trouble finding Telvanni themed mods for specifically the Landmass and Quest mod categories, so we do have a couple of just random mods in today's lineup. But for the most part, you'll find magical Telvanni gameplay, townhouse, and other various mods in today's episode. And as always, you'll find down the links for all of them down in the video description below. So with that all out of the way, let's get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Sadrith Mora Academy of Magecraft by Princess Stomper. And, well, this is perhaps a bit of an odd mod to showcase for this episode. It isn't exactly Telvanni themed, outside of involving, mages, and being located pretty close to Sadrith Mora. And on top of that, it's just an odd mod in general. For you see, this mod adds a new and a unique looking castle a little ways north of Sadrith Mora. And this is a magical academy where young students can go to learn all about the different schools of magic. And something to note here, this mod requires children of Morrowind and playable children. And just for the purpose of showcasing this mod, I'm actually playing as a child character here. And I don't think we've ever actually showcased playable children before. It's just one of those mods that's slipped on my notice until now, I suppose. But anyway, if you're playing as a child character, you can actually enroll in this magical academy as a student. And this entire school here is basically a Morrowind version of Hogwarts from the Harry Potter series of books. And that's really pretty obvious the more you check out this mod. I mean, there's the banquet hall, the sorting cup, which, sorts you into one of 4 houses, each based on a creature from Morrowind. And there's a whole lot of other similarities, and this is kind of what I mean as a bit of an odd mod, because you really wouldn't expect something like this to exist, but, it does. Which I guess just goes to show one of the great things about modding: the unexpected is almost always possible, and almost always, already exists already. But anyway, just sort of moving on here, the castle is a fairly big, place, with classrooms for each of the different schools of magic, such as restoration, conjuration, alteration, and so on and so forth. And each of these classrooms has professors and students just hanging around. And as you might expect, the professors here offer training in their respective fields. And as you can see here, there's some just really curious things going on in some of these classrooms. But, just moving on, there are a few quests involved with this mod, namely a main quest, which involves saving the school from some sort of evil, which involves killing werewolves and all that. And there's also a side quest about, tracking down a set of unique rings hidden throughout the entire school. And this is just a rather interesting and certainly unique mod to check out, especially if you're a fan of the Harry Potter books. For our house mod of the week this week, we have Telvanni's House by WulfShaman. And this is not the first time we've showcased this mod. We first featured it as one of the random drawing winners for the Morrowind Marathon 2017 modding competition. And indeed, it was released as part of that competition nearly a year ago, which, by the way, is coming up here again pretty soon, so better stop planning your own, mod submissions. But anyway, since it was first released, it's gotten a major update, adding a new set of docks, and a small secondary house that belongs to the groundskeeper for this Telvanni starter home. And as I've already mentioned in our original video, this is just an incredibly unique and scenic abode. And WulfShaman, as I've repeatedly said in the past, is a truly talented house modder for just coming up with some of these wonderfully unique and polished little, mods like this. And anyway, we're just going to fly around the exterior a bit here, and there's a fair amount of new detailing around the home here with this new version, with Telvanni roots and the like, as well as an upper-level balcony with, some quite lovely views of Sadrith Mora. And going inside the groundskeeper's house here first, one of the new things you'll find is an NPC who takes care of the property, with a bit of dialogue and a background story for this unique home. And of course, he also offers a few services here as well. And real quick, we're just going to check out the rest of the groundskeeper's house here, which again just has a really unique design to it. I love what the author has done here of creating unique mushroom furniture, like a little table, bookshelves, and a bed pod down here. These are just some really creative finishings, perfectly suited to the Telvanni. And now moving on to the player house proper. Not much has really changed here since the last time we showcased it. There's still a lower level storage area with chests and urns, and an upper level, sort of mixed dining room and bedroom with a bed pod. And there's also a small bath here as well. And all in all, this is just a really great and scenic little Telvanni house mod to call your own, and I'd highly recommend it. And this week's gameplay mod of the week is VB's Sadrith Mora by VrakeBrae. And I kind of feel like I mispronounced that name there, so, I'll just go ahead and apologize for that. And strictly speaking, this isn't so much a gameplay mod as it is a town mod, But, well, we've got a surplus of Telvanni town mods to cover in today's episode, so we just sort of have to make do. Having said that though, this is a really cool looking and seriously underrated overhaul for the city of Sadrith Mora that just adds a ton of new detailing to the city's landscape, with tons of mushrooms, roots, and lots of illumination from lamps, lanterns, and streetlights and all that. Which, by the way, is why we're showcasing this mod during the evening and nighttime hours, because you really can't see the illumination effects during the, daylight, obviously. And that's one of the biggest features here. And in any event, we're just going to fly around Sadrith Mora, and the small details, well, pretty much the entire city, including a few new banners added to the buildings and routes here, as well as new gateways and a sort of partial route wall going around the, some of the hilltops here. And needless to say, this one will, probably conflict with a lot of other Sadrith Mora-based town overhauls out there, including at least one or two other mods that we're going to be taking a look at today. And in addition to all the new mushrooms, illumination, routes, and just general detailing here, there's also a new house that's, just been added to the city here, and I believe this is meant as a player house that, you can just move into, though we won't really be looking at it here. It's basically your typical Telvanni house pod, and it does, just help to populate the city a bit more. But anyway, just moving on, I have to say I really love the, illumination aspect of this mod here. There's just dozens, if not hundreds, of lanterns now scattered across the entire city, hanging from various giant mushrooms, or from the mushroom pods of the residents here, and it really creates just a visually beautiful and epic scene. I think it really just, adds to the magical character of the Telvanni capital here. And it should be noted that it does have a compatibility patch for Sadrith Mora expanded by Lalu 66, so that's something to, just keep in mind. And anyway, this is just a really cool looking overhaul for Sadrith Mora, and if you're looking to, do some touch-ups to the capital of Great House Telvanni on Vardenfell in your game, you might want to just consider giving this mod a try. And next up, we are at Town Hall of the Week, and this week we have Ultimate Vivek, Telvanni Canton by God Vivek and Bobby. And this one basically completely changes the plaza of the Telvanni Canton in Vivek, giving it a whole new and unique look, as well as giving the plaza an, open-air top, instead of being confined to an interior space, and really this is a pretty massive change. The Telvanni Plaza here actually looks like a Telvanni settlement, with towering Telvanni towers, house pods, and elevated walkways, and routes just sort of, growing out of the traditional Velothi architecture of Vivek here. And this really makes for a scenic and beautiful town design, with tons of mushrooms, atmospheric lighting, waterfalls, and oddly enough, a bit of swamp water at the lower levels here. And all this just makes this a pretty fantastic overhaul, with a fair bit of verticality in the design here. I mean, that's the, one thing the Telvanni are pretty good at, using verticality in their town construction, and this one takes full advantage of that, turning the once rather dull and boring Velothi-style Telvanni plaza, the vanilla game, into a full-on towering Telvanni settlement. I really just love everything about this mod, really. It has a really neat style to it, and I believe this was originally one of a planned series of German mods, since translated into English, called the Ultimate Vivek series. But as far as I know, only 2 mods in this series were ever, fully released. The other one being for the Lalu Canton, which is a bit of a shame because there's obviously a fair bit of potential here. But anyway, you might notice that there does appear to be a few more house pods than you might expect. This mod moves some of the vanilla game NPCs into their own homes, instead of just, living in the temporary housing facility, I think. So that's where some of this, extra housing comes from. And speaking of, this mod does in fact replace all the interiors for the buildings here, originally in the Telvanni Plaza, with new Telvanni-style interiors. So this isn't just an exteriors-only overhaul, but also an interior one, which covers the Telvanni Tower, the temporary housing facility, and the various other buildings originally in the plaza. And all this makes for a pretty unique take on the Telvanni Canton, and it's certainly worth, taking a look at, though it will quite obviously conflict with any mods that add things to the Telvanni Plaza, or, which modify this part of Vivek, like potentially the Outlander mod, though I don't really think there's any risk of that getting released at this point, but anyway, it's just, something to keep in mind. For items of the week this week, we have Traveller's Guide to Dining number 3 by Debbie Dalio, and strictly speaking, this isn't exactly, an items mod, but, well, it's close enough, I'd say. But anyway, this one sort of just provides an overhaul for the Lizard's Head Tavern in the Telvanni Canton in Vivek. And yes, it does seem like we're focusing on the Telvanni Canton a lot in this episode. That is purely accidental, I assure you. And anyway, this one really does 2 things. First, it adds new items to the Lizard's Head, including new drinks and food-related items that you can purchase And it also adds new characters with a new dialogue, background stories, and even a quest for you to check out. And most of the vanilla NPCs here also have a lot of new dialogue as well, with topics about the Lizard's Head, their favorite meals, what their trade and background is, and just a ton of other stuff. And you can also order special meals and drinks now. The orc that you'll find just wandering around comes with a number of dialogue options for ordering house specials and drinks and all that. And unlike everyone else, he has a ton of unique stuff to say. And arguably, this mod is as much a dialogue mod as it is an items mod. But just moving on real quick, you also find a Telvanni wizard in here, who now has quite a bit to say about, House Telvanni. And you can sort of just ask about a lot of the various leaders of Great House Telvanni, which is obviously where our Telvanni theme just comes in a bit. There's also new custom menus for the Lizard's Head that you'll find on the tables and counters here. That, just lists the drinks, food, and special orders that you can get here now. And this is a rather nice addition, I think, and it includes a bit of new artwork in the documents here. And really, this mod just does a really great job of fleshing out one of the more, I would say, unique taverns in Morrowind. The Lizard's Head has always, stood out as a bit of a curious destination, and now there's more of a reason to check it out. But of course, we still need to cover the actual new items here. So as mentioned before, there's a number of new drinks that you can purchase here, each with their own unique bottles and all that. And this includes a variety of different kinds of wines and other drinks. And each of the different meals that you can order also comes with a unique bottle, though these perhaps aren't the highest quality looking dishes. But you can kind of tell they're supposed to be different kinds of meals and all that. And all in all, this is a pretty interesting and certainly underrated mod to check out if you're, in the market for fleshing out the Telvanni campaign a bit more. And, it might work out well, just sort of combined with the, town mod we just showcased. This week's quest mod of the week is Hortus Cavern by Nicoleathin, and there's no way that was the correct pronunciation, so I do apologize about that. But anyway, this is, well, obviously a quest mod that starts out when you stop in at one of the shops in Saran and ask about a mysterious trapdoor behind the counter here, which will just sort of launch you off onto a series of quests involving the murder of the shop owner's husband, finding his killers, and lastly putting his spirit to rest. And you might be wondering, since most of this takes place in Saran, how this fits in with our Telvanni theme. Well, just wait a bit, be patient, and you'll find out. But first we're going to do a bit of exploring. For you see, this one adds a new cavern underneath Saran, including a couple of buildings that were the former home of the shopkeeper and her husband. And right now they're just, completely trashed, since the killers, whoever they are, just sort of ransacked the place. But if you finish the questline, this entire cavern complex will be restored to its former glory and become a player home for you to use, as again we'll see here in a bit. But anyway, we're just going to jump ahead here, and for the purpose of avoiding spoilers and all that, we won't be showing off really much of the questline here. And, well, look at that, what do you know, there's our Telvanni theme after all. As it turns out, this mod also adds a small Telvanni village to the Azura's Coast region, which is a part of the questline here, including a set of docks, a small central tower, and a number of house pods surrounding the central Telvanni manor. And gee golly, it sure does, just feel like we're covering a lot of Telvanni towns in this video. Probably going to end up exhausting our supply, honestly. So this might be the last Telvanni themed episode for a really long time, at least until someone releases some more Telvanni town, landmass, and quest mods anyway. And in any event, once you complete the quest line, you'll find that the Halalu-style underground manor and cavern complex that we saw before has just been completely restored. And yes, this is really, the main content of the mod here. It's probably more of a house mod than either a quest or a town mod, truth be told. And yes, that does mean the Telvanni theme connection is perhaps a bit weak, but, oh well, minor detail. And anyway, while this might be a Halalu-style house, it's actually designed specifically for mages with an alchemy lab, which includes containers for ingredients, ingredient sorting, and otherwise just looks pretty nice here. And this mod also adds in a new sort of crafting system that allows you to harvest crystals from the cavern here and to create soul gems, which is a nifty and, really handy little setup for mages here. Anyway, there's also a library with a bunch of these custom-made bookcases that have fancy glass doors, so you can, just protect your books from the elements, which is always a nice feature. And like any house mod, there's also an armory and a storage hall with a number of armored display mannequins and chests for you to use. And now one last thing to take a look at here, this underground abode also comes with a set of living quarters, including a dining area, kitchen, a few shelves, and a master bedroom. And really, this one has an absolute ton of features, and for everything it has, with quests, a new village, and a fairly feature-heavy player home, it's just surprisingly underrated, and I would certainly encourage you to at least, check it out. Next up, we have our Landmass Mod of the week, which this week is Hawkfoot Island by Evil Fish. And yes, this isn't really, Telvanni themed at all. As I've said before, we're running dangerously low on Landmass mods, and this is really the best we can do on short notice, even if it really has nothing to do with the theme. Though I will note there is a wizard on the island, and well, that's a, pretty big stretch for our theme here. It's all I have to work with, really. We just, need some more Landmass mods to showcase, so if anyone's listening out there, just wants to release, say about 20 or 30 Landmass mods later this year, that would be really greatly appreciated. It doesn't even have to be anything big, just a house on an island will work, really. Maybe we need to do a Landmass modding competition to, just encourage people, but, oh well, that's an idea for another time, I suppose. Anyway, Hawkfoot Island is a fairly dated landmass mod from about 2005 that adds a new island near Dagenfell with a house on it. And yes, this is a house mod with a short quest and a dungeon for you to, just sort of fight through, as we'll see here in a bit. But anyway, to start out with, we're going to just check out some of the rooms in this house here. And one of the first rooms we're going to be taking a look at here is a display hall with a number of display stands and a few bookshelves for you to use. And there's also a small magical lab, including ingredient containers, and some extra, display space for just your alchemical experiments. You'll also find a library and study, as you can see here, which you can just use to store books and the like. And there's also a couple of more, cosmetic rooms, like a kitchen and dining room. And, while this isn't perhaps the highest quality house mod on the market, it has a pretty nice and simple design that's perhaps slightly cozy and atmospheric, especially the bedroom here. But anyway, we just have one more thing to look at here. There is a fairly sizable dungeon underneath the home here that you'll have to explore as part of the quest. But we're just going to leave off here so as to, avoid spoilers and all that. For our NPC Mod of the week this week, we have Dryads Revamped by Calisan, a Redwood Tree Sprite, and a Spirited Treasure. And now again, this isn't exactly a Telvanni themed mod per se, but it does add a new race that you can play as. And it comes with a few, magical attributes and bonuses for various magical skills. So, close enough, I would say. That said, this new race here is, it should be mentioned, female only. There are no male character options here, and this is perhaps a bit different from the, mods we normally showcase. Until now, I don't think I've featured really any female-only race mods from Morrowind, though there are a lot of them out there. And that's probably because, I tend to play as a male character myself, but anyway, getting back to the mod here, while this race is female only, it does come with about 12 to 15 different face options, as well as I think it's about 20 different hairstyles, so really there's quite a bit of variety here. And you can see a Dryad character here, and obviously they're a sort of a greenish-like elf race, with some really interesting different face and hair options, including tattoos, and you'll notice there's actually butterflies in the hair here. And a lot of the hair options come with flowers, twigs, or, butterflies like this, since the Dryads are supposed to be fairly close to nature. And now, not only is this a new race mod, but this mod also adds a ton of new items that you can purchase from one of the two NPCs here in the Askanals region, just a little ways from Vivek in the distance. And these items include a number of different types of clothing and staff-based weapons. And you can see one of the clothing outfits and staffs here. And gosh, I really love these magical staffs especially. They have these sort of neat little particle effects on them, and the weapon models themselves are pretty nicely detailed. And it almost looks like they have, alien crystals embedded in them, which is, an interesting design here. But anyway, the clothing outfits here are, also nice. And they range from more full-scale dresses to more, well, scantily clad options, which we aren't going to showcase here for obvious reasons. And anyway, you can also purchase fairy wings, and there's about, I would say, a dozen different varieties available for sale. And these just, show up on your back whenever you wear them. And just real quick, we're going to just take a look at one more character here, with a different hairstyle and face option. And this is just a really nice mod that adds a fairly fleshed out new race to the game, though it definitely won't beat everyone's taste. I will just go ahead and caution everyone that this race does not have an underwear version, so there's only nudity. And yes, this is perhaps a bit of a more, I would say, adult-themed mod, so consider yourself warned. And this week's New Meshes and Textures Mod of the Week is a Telvanni retexture by Logan. And this is by far the newest texture replacer for the Telvanni architecture set, coming out just in the last month, I believe, making it one of only a handful of Telvanni texture replacers out there. In the last 16 years, only about 10 or 12 texture packs have been released for the Telvanni architecture set, making it one of the hardest tile sets to, find a good replacer for. But anyway, Logan's replacer here obviously covers the entire Telvanni architecture set, and we're just going to fly around Sadrith Mora a bit to check it out here. And of course, as with all of Logan's texture replacer mods, this one is of extremely high quality, coming in both 1K and 2K resolution. And this mod was also released alongside a Vine replacer, which we're also using here, along with Logan's landscape texture replacer for the ground textures, just in case you're curious. And now you might notice that Sadrith Mora looks a bit different with this mod installed than it did in vanilla Morrowind, and that's not just due to the new textures here. Much like with Halali Retexture, which we showcased a couple of weeks ago in Morrowind Modding Showcases episode 67, Telvanni Retexture comes with an optional download that changes the landscape of Sadrith Mora, and these alterations are somewhat similar to VB Sadrith Mora, which we just saw as part of our gameplay mod of the week, in that it adds a ton of new mushrooms, vines, roots, and other bits of just exterior detailing to the landscape of Sadrith Mora here. And you also notice that the mushroom house pods here have some more windows, or at least seem to have some more windows built into them. And of course, there's also quite a few routes now going over the roads here as well, especially along that bit of road going between the Sadrith Mora Market District and Wolverine Hall. And really, there's quite a few similarities here with VB's Sadrith Mora, but of course, using both of these mods, or at least the alterations file, together will result in more than a few conflicts. So that's just something to keep in mind. But anyway, all this extra detailing with roots and giant mushrooms just helps add a bit more verticality to the city here. And of course, Logan's new textures are also pretty nice. They're quite different from the vanilla ones. You'll notice the Telvanni roots are now more of a brownish colouring, where before in vanilla Morrowind they were a sort of light green, and the tops of these mushroom house pods also look, quite a bit different. So this isn't exactly a vanilla-themed replacer like, Tidy's Architectura series of mods, but these textures are still quite lovely, with a high amount of detailing, and they're just an excellent graphical upgrade for your game. But real quick, we're just going to take a look at a few interiors here with these new textures applied, starting with the Gateway Tavern. And, well, I have to say, I absolutely love these interior textures. You can really just tell the sheer quality and detailing here. And these textures look almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe organic? Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's say organic, because there is something just, sort of, well, alive about these textures that just sort of reminds me of real-world mushrooms. Which is a good thing, given that Telvanni architecture is clearly mushroom-based. And in any event, this is just an excellent replacer from Logan. And the City Alterations download is a nice little detailing addition for Sadrith Mora, and both are certainly worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Logan's numerous other replacers out there. And next up, we have our modest resource mod of the week, which this week is Dark Telvanni Armor by Kiev. And this mod just adds a new set of armor, Dark Telvanni Armor, that can be used as a modest resource in your own mods. And it's a pretty nice looking armor set, with perhaps a slightly, sinister look to it. And I believe it was sort of meant to go along with, Kiev's Dark Telvanni architecture, a resource pack, which we showcased a really long time ago. And anyway, while this is a modest resource, and free to be used in other mods, Kiev did specify in his README file that he would like to be informed if you're, planning to use his assets in your own mods. So, just remember to send him a message on the Nexus if you're planning to use this. And otherwise, it's a pretty nice looking armor resource, and definitely worth checking out. For our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Telvanni Rebuilt by Zirin Arctis. And this is, you guessed it, yet another Telvanni town mod, only this one is perhaps a bit of a strange one. As the name of the mod would imply, it adds a settlement around Telvanni, but this isn't strictly speaking a Telvanni settlement. Oh no, this is an Indoril-style settlement, for some reason. According to the mod's description, the Indoril and Telvanni have made an unlikely alliance in this mod's lore, hence the combined architecture here. And, well, this is a bit of an older mod. It dates back to around 2004, and you can, clearly tell it has a lot of those early 2000s design elements that were once so common in the community. Not that it's a bad mod, of course, just a bit different. I mean, you don't exactly see Indoril and Telvanni architecture together very often, So it's a unique mod just for that, though personally, given the dated nature of this mod, it might be better just to install and check out, but not really keep as a permanent part of your save game. But that's just my advice on the matter. I do think this might be a better mod for modders to use, just as a platform for generating ideas and all that, than really something you'd want to play in-game, because there's, some interesting stuff here, and the mod is overall of pretty decent quality, especially for 2004. But having said that, it does have some issues, like the fact that none of these buildings are actually tied with the Stronghold scripting in-game, so whether or not you've actually built your Stronghold, there'll just be a large Enduro settlement in the middle of the Mora region for seemingly no reason at all. And clearly this isn't going to work well with the game's lore, but that's perhaps a minor nitpick. And just before we wrap up this showcase though, we're just going to check out a couple of the interiors here. And this mod adds about a dozen or so new buildings, each with their own unique interiors. I don't believe any of these have been copy and pasted, though I could be mistaken. Having said that though, a lot of them are fairly bare, with a lot of just empty space everywhere. But if you're looking for a just sort of different take on the Telvanni Stronghold, and don't mind some obvious conflicts with Uver's legacy, you might want to just check out this mod. This week's Blast from the Past mod of the week is Telvanni Grown by Majora Shioth. And hey, what do you know? We just showcased a Telvanni mod, and now we're showcasing another one. Though don't run away quite yet, this mod is far from what it appears to be, as we'll see in a minute. And out of all the mods that we featured for our Blast from the Past segment, this might be the most underrated one we've ever shown, but again, more on that in a moment. First things first, this mod slightly modifies Telvanni, including some more giant roots around the stronghold, and a new manor connected to the top of the tower here. And real quick, we're just going to check out the inside of this manor. Even though this is not the main content of this mod, don't be fooled. Though, maybe you should be fooled, because it's April Fool's Day. But anyway, the real meat of this mod is something very different. And anyway, having said that though, this manor has a display hall, an alchemy lab, with some overpowered alchemical equipment, and an interesting looking bedroom. But let's just move on, shall we? And the real content of this mod isn't some minor addition to Telvanni, oh no! It's something quite unexpected. I have but 5 words for you. Giant Flying Daedric Sky Temple. And yes, you heard me correctly, this mod adds an absolutely massive flying Daedric Sky Temple to the skies over the Bitter Coast region, complete with mixed Telvanni architecture and massive Telvanni roots, just spanning between the various Daedric ruins and shrines here. And the really crazy thing about this mod, none of this is even hinted at in the mod's download page or in the screenshots or anything. That's right, this Sky Temple contains about 95% of the new content added by this mod, and it's not even mentioned anywhere by the mod author, which is no doubt why this mod has remained relatively unknown for so many years, with a lifetime download count of less than 400 downloads. I mean, that's insane for what is easily one of the more creatively unique Telvanni mods I've ever seen. But apologies, I'm gushing a bit, and it's just not often that I get to discover a hidden gem like this, and it's just so exciting to discover a mod as insane as this one just out of the blue. But anyway, we're just going to fly around the outside of this giant flying Daedric Sky Temple here for a bit, because this place has just a really cool exterior design. The author clearly put a lot of thought into this. And this just goes to show, again, some of the crazy things that you can build with the construction set when you don't limit yourself to just what the original tile sets were meant to be used for. After all, there's no real reason why you can't use interior tile pieces in an exterior environment like this, and even though the vanilla tile sets are a bit on the limited side, clearly there's a ton that you can do with them. You can build giant flying temples in the sky, or a giant Godzilla-like dinosaurs, which is something that has been done in the past with the Daedric Ruin tile set, or build giant towers like our Morrowind Modding Madness Tower, or even the Daedric towers that you can find in Harshlands. There's just a lot you can do. And mods like this are great at, just demonstrating the creative potential of the construction set. Plus, this Daedric Sky Temple just looks insanely epic. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there's actually a secret door in the back of that Telvanni Manor we saw earlier that leads up to this Sky Temple. So this whole thing is basically a house mod with just some amazing views that were a little too high up to actually, see the ground from here. And anyway, we still have a lot more to show off here, so heading on inside, you'll find a sort of welcoming chamber with a scroll that just sort of welcomes you to the Sky Temple. And something you're going to notice here is that there's a ton of documents just scattered throughout this entire temple. And there's obviously a story being told here, one that you'll just have to discover gradually as you explore. But anyway, past that little welcoming room, you'll find the main entry hall, which is a fairly large set of Telvanni chambers, including a number of shelving and, just display areas that you can use. And this is a really nice and sort of scenic entry hall, with a number of potted plants and trees and the like. And there's even an atmospheric little ingredient garden beneath the main entry hall here, including a number of raw ores for diamonds and glass, and, a bunch of plants and the like. And you also find a couple of bedrooms up on the upper level of the entry hall here. And again, you'll find a lot of documents just scattered around in this mod, all from a variety of different characters, telling their different stories and their different fates here in the Sky Temple. Now, as you might expect from the exterior, this place is pretty massive, with a number of rooms and corridors, and it'll take a fairly long while to, completely explore this entire complex, and you'll need to find the keys in order to access some areas. But moving on, we're next going to be taking a look at the main dining room, which, unlike the previous areas we saw, is built in a Daedric, architecture style. And this is just one of the rooms I love here, because the author has used some really just unique and creative designs throughout the entire Sky Temple here. And this large Daedric dining room table is certainly one of them. I must confess that I sometimes fall victim to using vanilla game assets only in the way they were intended. And I think that's true for a lot of modders out there, but clearly there's a lot of cool things you can just make by combining vanilla assets in unusual ways, or using them for something other than their original function. And you can just sort of see that same level of creativity here in this, little kitchen-like area as well. And anyway, moving on to the rest of this temple here, you also find a sort of servant's wing with about 8 or 9 different bedrooms here. And while this was once a populated temple of dozens of people living here, the entire place is pretty much empty now. So you can just use these bedrooms here for your own NPC companions or servants, like from a staff agency or a lord's min, or so on and so forth. And there's even a display hall in the servant's wing, one of a few different small areas with a pair of bookshelves that you can just use for yourself. And yes, while this mod contains a surprising giant flying Daedric Sky Temple, at the end of the day, this is still pretty much a house mod. And while there's a fairly interesting and intriguing story to be found here, you should really view this as a house mod first and foremost. And anyway, there's really not that much more to see here, just the throne room and the master bedroom. And all I can say is that this is just a really amazing and certainly a very unique mod, with just a lot of cool stuff jam-packed into it. Unfortunately, it will conflict with Uverth's Legacy and most other Uverth mods out there, for that matter, unless someone gets around to, making a compatibility patch. But still, this mod is definitely worth at least, taking a look at. Finally, for our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Sadrith Mora Docks by Sadrith. And this is really a pretty small mod, basically just a minor immersive addition for Sadrith Mora that expands the docks here to include a few more docking platforms, and also a number of ships as well. And really, it's a rather bare-bones mod. Outside of the new docks and ships here, there's really not too much to see here. And of course, this might still conflict with some of the other Sadrith Mora mods that we looked at earlier today, though I'm not positive about that. And anyway, this mod also adds a new ship to the docks of Wolverine Hall. That small docking platform behind the fort here. And that's really about everything that this mod does, I think. It really doesn't seem to include any new, transportation options to other cities or whatnot. Just a cosmetic addition to this city here. And anyway, that wraps up this episode of our online showcases. As always, down the links or down below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.